Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Shadow Self, A Journey Within. I'm Todd LeBuff, and my co-host Joanne Bessesi and I are very excited for our next interview. So first, I would like to say hi, Joanne.
Hi, Todd. It's a great afternoon today.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
It is a great afternoon. Doing well here, too. Very excited about our next guest. So I'm going to introduce you all to him. Our next guest is Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. He is a Nagual, a Toltec master of transformation. He is a direct descendant of the Toltecs of the Eagle Knight lineage and is the son of Don Miguel Ruiz. By combining the wisdom of his family traditions with the knowledge gained from his own personal journey, he now helps others realize their own path to their personal freedom. Hello, Miguel.
Hi, Tuck. Good morning. How are you? Hi, Joanne.
Hi. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you as well. We're very excited that you're with us today. So we'd like to start out with, can you talk about what the mastery of self is?
Sure. The mastery of self basically is that moment where I stop pretending to be something I am not and I accept myself just the way I am. You can say that through the journey that I've done in my life. I started my apprenticeship at the age of 14. So when you start this program, or this apprenticeship with my family, it starts out with something theoretical and then starts to become something practical. And then it starts becoming something where the knowledge and the traditions of my ancestry of life starts becoming something that I can see in my own experience of life. As we can say that we work very hard to heal a lot of the wounds we have in our own life, the wounds that conditional love left in our hearts, in our minds, all the wounds that may come from those experiences. And we heal that. And then we get to the point where we say, what now? What's next? Kind of like the graduate, when you graduate from college or high school and you go, what's next? What's the next step? And I like using college better because when you graduate from college, you have a choice to continue on to a postgraduate or you go on to the world. Same thing with high school, same thing with anything really. And you get to the point of what now? Well, in our tradition, we start this whole journey as an individual journey, a journey within oneself. You can say that the way to describe it is if I'm the voice that's talking inside my own mind, who's listening? I am. Well, if I'm the one who's listening, who's talking inside my mind? Who is the voice of my thoughts? And the answer is I am. So you can say that's the relationship between me and me. If that relationship is in disharmony, then all my relationships with everyone I have a relationship with is in disharmony. But if I bring harmony into that relationship, then I am able to bring that harmony with everyone. So it's an inner journey to bring that harmony within myself first, because I can't give what I do not have. So you can say that one works towards that harmony to live life with being happy with myself, being able to enjoy being me, which is what allows me to enjoy life, which subsequently allows me to enjoy all my relationships in my life, because I don't live isolated in a hill. I don't live isolated in a monastery or ashram. I live in my community. I live in my city. I live in with my family. I am not isolated. I'm a co-creator of everything that exists in this world, not just in a society, but in nature. So once I heal that relationship within myself, I begin to heal my relationships with the people in my life. So the mastery of self, coming from that point of view, is the moment where I know who I am. And I'm about to engage a whole world that sees me dramatically different. Imagine being the only sober person in a party where everyone is drunk. Someone may be holding a glass of wine and they've been nursing that glass of wine for hours, taking a sip here and there, and that person is barely intoxicated, if not intoxicated at all. And next to that person is a person that's about to open their third bottle of wine, which they've consumed all by themselves, and they blacked out some time ago, but they're still functioning. And you're interacting with the two of them, and everyone in the party is somewhere between the two of them. some in different stages of their own awareness, some in increasing their drunkenness, some sobering up, and everyone's going up and down, left and right. But the thing about this party is that everyone that's there is everyone you know, from your family members to your coworkers to, well, everyone, even to the barista at your favorite coffee shop. If everyone's taking a drink, but you're the only sober person, what are you going to do? Are you going to engage and give in to that? Or are you going to stay in your own awareness, in your own discipline? And then you realize that that drink that's intoxicating them is not necessarily alcohol, but it's the drama of the party.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you can say that if one comes, if life is you can say a park, an amusement park, well, you came to ride the rides. So it's in those relationships where everyone's in different stages of their awareness, of their enlightenment, or whatever it is in their own journey. And you want to create that harmony with them. And you begin by respecting their creation, and that's their choice. You're not here to sober them up. You are here to engage with them. You are here to share life with them. And in my point of view, the image that I have with that, besides the image of the party, is that image of, in order to rescue someone who's stuck in the mud, if you jump into the mud to save them, then there's going to be two people who need saving. And once you're stuck in the mud, either you both work together to help each other out, or one is going to propel the other one to create leverage and sink that person as you get out, or they sink you. So the best way to get someone out of the mud is to stay out of the mud, but here's my hand to help you out, to find that solid ground. That image of the solid ground is what I consider the mastery of self. The moment where I'm comfortable being me, that I'm standing in my own solid ground that allows me to know who I am, what I am, allows me to have control of my reason, and allows me from that control to help the people in my life. And the way I help them is to share the relationship with us. Because here's the thing, I'm the constant in every relationship that I am in. So and I can't give what I do not have, which means if I have conditional love for myself, which is this harmony within me and me, you can say my mind and my heart, just to put it that way, then I've got nothing but this harmony to give to everyone. But if I heal my heart and I heal my mind, and I'm able to love myself unconditionally, then I become the constant opportunity for unconditional love in every relationship that I am in. So to me, that's what being the mastery of self is to enjoy life, to continue to create in life, and all the while staying in my own awareness, staying in my own discipline, staying aware that I'm a living being with the full capacity to evolve with every moment, with every choice that I have, and that I will feel fear, I will feel anger, and at the same time, I have the potential to feel love, to feel joy. I can feel the experience of this work of art, painting the best nightmare or the most harmonious dream. That's why we call ourselves Toltec. We are artists, and the canvas for our work of art is our life. And that's what I understand, at least from my point of view, what the mastery of self is.
I like the way that is explained very eloquently, and I agree with that. And so I'm going to take it off of the unconditional love part, where you say that the opposite of love is love. Can you elaborate for the listeners on that? Because a lot of people don't understand that. They think like the opposite of love would be discernment, or the opposite of love would be disharmony. But in your explanation and in your book, you explain that the opposite of love is love. So I would love if
Mm-hmm.
you would elaborate on that.
Well, sure. Hate, anger, and prejudice, they're all more of the instruments one uses to express the opposite of love, which is love. To simplify it, the opposite of unconditional love is conditional love. Um, the way I can describe it is this: my love exists because I'm alive to give it life. Just like my body is alive because I'm here to give it life. I'm not this body. and the moment of my last heartbeat or my last breath, I don't take my body with me. I'm the energy that animates it. There's a law of physics that says in order for an object to move, there needs to be a force that moves that object. If I use Nahuatl language with that, in order for a tonal to move, there needs to be a Nahual that moves it. Tonal is what we know as matter or an object, something that occupies space. And the energy is something that moves that matter. We can call it spirit, you can call it soul, you can call it intent, you can call it life, God. Whatever your tradition has taught you it is, that's what I am. In my tradition, we call that the Nahual, which has three definitions: a spiritual teacher, a spiritual guide, but most importantly, the energy that animates this body. So, from that point of view, my body is alive because I'm here to give it life. And on the same concept, I am not my mind. I am the energy that gives it life. So you can say the same energy I use to move my legs, to move my arms, is the same energy I use to create a thought. And at the root of every belief I have in my belief system, there's a yes that gives it power. So I am not my mind, I am not this body, but I am the force that gives life to both, which means I am the whole. If we can understand this concept, then we can also branch it out to every emotion I have, which includes love. My love exists because I'm alive, or I can say I am here to give it life. And that love can be expressed either conditionally or unconditionally. Now, conditional love is the result of one would be called conditioning, or what in our tradition we call domestication, which is a system of reward and punishment by which we model the behavior of an individual. If you live up to the expectation, you get the reward. And if you don't live up to the expectation, you get the punishment. And since we are emotional beings that experience the full spectrum of every emotion we have, then that reward feels like acceptance, which feels like love. And the punishment feels like rejection and the lack thereof of love. Otherwise, the result of that is conditional love, which means I love you if. For example,
Mm.
hello,
Mm-hmm.
my name is Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. I don't take things personally. I don't make assumptions. I always do my best. I forgot the other agreement. Oh no, how can I call myself Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.? And there's the diatribe of judgment, punishing myself for not living up to that image of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. that knows the four agreements through and through. And if he forgets one of them, how can he call himself a Toltec? How can I call myself Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.? And you can see that that judgment, that anger is just an instrument to punish me for not living up to that image. That's why I say anger, jealousy, all those things are just instruments we use to implement the opposite of love, which is in this case conditional love. Conditional love only wants to see what it wants to see. And basically, if I live up to that image of perfection, that is, and mind you, to be perfect is to be completely free of any flaw, to be that Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. that is always impeccable with his word, doesn't make assumptions, doesn't take things personally, always does his best, then I'm worthy of love. But I forgot the fifth agreement. Oh no, how can I call myself? And the downward spiral starts all over again. The fifth agreement being skeptical but learn to listen. So if we use that example, I'm using the four agreements, mind you, the five agreements, as an instrument of domestication, thus corrupting the five agreements, and turning them into the five conditions or the four conditions. Now I'm using them to corrupt, to domesticate, and that's, you can say, how we corrupt a lot of our traditions, from the teachings of Buddha, of Siddhartha, of Jesus, of Muhammad, of psychology. We Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, psychiatry, Alcoholics Anonymous. We corrupt all those traditions to domesticate. And the instruments we're going to use are hate, anger, jealousy, all those things. So you can say that from that point of view, the opposite of love is love, meaning conditional love. Unconditional love is the willingness to see myself as I am, to know that I am the sum of every choice that I've ever made, but at the same time, I'm the youngest I will ever be. And at this very moment, this is me, and be willing to see myself as I am. And for example, in a moment of clarity, I can say, hello, my name is Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., and I do take things personally. I do make assumptions. Sometimes I'm not impeccable with my word. Sometimes I'm not skeptical at all. I buy it hook, line, and sinker. And sometimes I don't do my best. Just ask my wife. She's my witness. It's the moment where I
Wow.
stop pretending to be something I am not for the sake of someone else's prejudice or judgment or active domestication or conditioning. So it's the moment where I say, this is me, but in what direction do I want to go in? So you can put it there that love exists because I exist to give it love, give it life. But it could be expressed conditionally or unconditionally. But love is love. So the opposite of love from that point of view is love, because conditional love is more damaging than hate, anger, or all those things. In fact, from this point of view, hate and anger and all those things are just simply the instruments by which we implement conditional love.
Yes. Wow, that's mind-blowing. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
So
very.
that would lead me into the mask that we wear then, because so many people walk around living in conditional love. And so the projection of the mask would be in your um, tradition or in your explanation. What would the projection of the mask be, or how to get rid of it?
The world has one condition, you can say, which is I need to know who you are in order for me to understand and relate to you. It's one of those things that that's why when we meet someone new, hi, how are you doing? What you do? What you ask? We know, like we're asking questions so we can find out how to relate with them. So you can say a mask is a symbol that we call an identity. Our identity, in my case, as a Toltec, as a father, as an author, as a marathoner, half marathoner, etc., etc., etc. And I say etc. because I have many facets, many relationships, many ways by which people can see me and understand me. So you can say a mask is just simply someone's understanding of who I am. Now, mind you, as we were growing up or we were conditioned or domesticated, the mask became the model by which we domesticate ourselves. In my example, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., that identity of that guy, Toltec, son of Don Miguel Ruiz, grandson of Madre Sarita, and the father of Miguel and Audrey, and the husband to Susan. If I live up to that image, then of the author or speaker or whatever, then I'm using that mask to introduce myself to the people. But I'm much, much more than that. But if I'm being domesticated, for example, if I'm using the four conditions as opposed to the four agreements, I have to live up to the image of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. I have to live up to that mask, because if I don't live up to it, how am I worthy? How do I know I'm worthy of love? How am I know that I'm worthy of acceptance, of being righteous or whatever? So from this point of view, an identity or a mask is just simply the model by which we domesticate ourselves. Now here, ego is easier to see as a function rather than a concept. When we talk about a concept, it can take on many shapes. But as a function, it's actually quite easy. The function of ego is to keep the illusion alive. In this case, the function of ego is to maintain that mask or identity alive. Now, mind you, a mask or identity is just like any word we use, a symbol. All the words we use in the English language, as well as Spanish and many other languages, are empty symbols whose definition is subject to agreement. There are words in English that are used in America that are innocent, but if we say those same words in the United Kingdom, they may not be so innocent. They may actually be seen as a vulgarity, as a poisonous word, as a demeaning, sexist word. I can think of words that the word fanny, for example, in an innocent term in the States, but not so innocent in the United Kingdom, or the word shag or whatever. If there's people hearing that, I
Right.
apologize. I didn't mean to use it that way, but just to prove a point that we use words as a symbol that allows us to understand one another, but we may have different definitions of that. Our mask, our identity is exactly the same thing. So once we become aware that how we've been domesticating ourselves is to living up to those masks that, in my case, I'll use three people: my mom, my wife, and my daughter. Three people who I'm in relationship with, and three people who bring out different elements of me. My mom sees me as her son and the young man that she gave birth to ever so long ago, and who grew up in front of her eyes, and she still calls me Miguelito, little Miguel. My wife knows me as Miguel, and she sees me completely different than my mom. And she and I have been together for 14 years plus, so she's seen that mature man in his late 20s, 30s, and now 40s. And my daughter, who's only known me for a good decade now, and she sees me as father. Now, all three of them are projecting a mask onto me. When I was young, you can say in my mom's perception, that image that she had of me was the model by which she domesticated with, and to live up to her boy and behavior and all that kind of thing. And eventually my wife did the same. And now my daughter has become pretty good at it. For example, I earlier this year, I shaved my head just because I wanted to see what it looks like. I came home and she went, "No, Daddy, no, never do that again." Now, mind you, that was someone who's just learning how to domesticate, and she is pretty blunt about it. While my wife and my mom have become very sophisticated, and you can't tell when it's happening. But all along, you're trying to live up to that image of the good father, the good husband, the good son. As I begin to heal my relationship with myself, part of that is healing the domestication of that mask upon me, of living up to the Mexican American male. And that opens up not just to my family, but to society, what is expected of me. I can believe certain prejudices or social cultural beliefs, and if I let those prejudices or social beliefs dictate who I am and what I am, I'm gonna be not living my life. I'm gonna be living society's expectation of me. It's kind of like Mick Jagger singing in Satisfaction. A man says, "I can't be a man if I don't smoke the same cigarettes as him." Then you're trying to live up to that image of what society is supposed to be, and people sell stuff to them in commercials and clothing and things like that. In our society, in our family, where it matters most, we're taught that identity. So this is the function of the mask in my tradition. And it's both a necessity, as in it's the instrument that allows me to create the icebreaker of a relationship. But if we're not careful, it becomes the model of domestication. It becomes the model by which I pretend to be something I am not, especially if I believe those projections. So as I heal those wounds, I'm slowly taking off those masks. I'm slowly taking off those masks and coming to peace with that. It becomes an instrument that allows me to interact with people. And then as time progresses, I realized that a mask is just knowledge. The knowledge I've learned to interact with someone in their life. And you can say that in interacting with my daughter, the knowledge I've acquired as a father to interact with her, the knowledge I've acquired as a husband to interact with my wife, and the knowledge I've acquired to interact with my mom. It's just knowledge. And that's what a mask is. It's the accumulation of all that knowledge that shapes that mask. And as a function, it's quite a beautiful function. The key is not to believe it. So you can say, here comes the mastery of self and comes in. My temptation is to believe it. So my discipline is to become aware that it's just someone's projection of me. It's just knowledge. And to not domesticate myself simply means to not believe it. It's just the way they see me, because I don't control the way others see me. So from that point of view, I introduce the concept of the tradition introduces the concept of the shapeshifter, which in the old villages, the old towns, represents a shaman who is able to change and to animal forms and morph. Well, the thing is that the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind, doesn't have a form. It's shapeless. Yes, this body has a form, but my mind doesn't, and the energy of who I am doesn't either. But it takes form in the perception of people. They understand me as the author, the father, the husband, the Mexican American, the American, or add more to it, Chicano, add more to those definitions, West Coaster, Californian, now Nevadan, and Reno resident. I'll go on and on and on. And you can say, just from those examples, I can put on multiple masks, and it's simply different people's projection of me. That's what allows me to become a shapeshifter. It's not that I change, is that people see me differently, because different people will bring out different elements of me. And that's why I like using the example of my daughter, my wife, and my mom. My daughter is going to bring a totally different side of me that my wife and my mom won't ever see. My mom is going to bring out an element of me that neither my wife or my daughter will never see. And same thing with my wife. And the reason why is because every relationship is as unique as the individual I'm in relationship with. Even though I'm the constant in every relationship will bring out a different element of me. Because now if I introduce my brothers and my father into this mix, they know a totally different guy. It's like having a party and inviting everyone you know. And your college friends will see someone different from your high school friends, and your work buddies will see someone dramatically different from those guys, and your neighbors as well. And all of a sudden, you add on to it, and everyone will see a totally different side of you. And every one of them will expect you to behave in the same way you did when they knew you, because that's the way they know how to relate with you. They're still friends of mine from high school. They'll still call me by the nickname I had in high school, which is Miggy. And in their eyes, whenever my wife hears them call me Miggy, they're like, who is that? And you're definitely not Miggy anymore. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the way they know me, and that's the way they relate to me, until they're willing to see the 42-year-old that's in front of them. That'll change. And that'll change once we sit down and start talking, and not just shop, but sharing with one another our expectations, our experiences, our reality, and all of a sudden we catch up to where we're at now. Some relationships never see that. They still see you as that college kid or a high school kid. There's definitely ex-girlfriends or ex-boyfriends out there that will see the other person as the person they dated a long time ago, and that person hasn't changed. And that's going to happen. So the mask in our tradition, going back to the question, it's just an instrument that allows us to know an individual, but it's just words, because it doesn't encompass the whole of the individual. It only encompasses that relationship you have with that. And my temptation in using the mastery of self is to believe that projection. And that's what it is. A mask is a projection that someone projects onto me, a mask projected onto me. And my temptation is to put it on, or just simply know that that projection is there until they're willing to see who I really am, and that mask will drop. But but where it matters most is when I let go of that mask within me, to be willing to see myself as I am. And all of a sudden I see myself as this individual that's constantly evolving, constantly changing, just like this planet, though it changes very slowly. This planet, if you look at a map of 7 billion years ago, you won't recognize this planet. You won't recognize that you're in Earth, because the tectonic plates were and the continents were in totally different place. And if we go on a spaceship and we come back 7 billion years ago from now, we won't recognize that we are on Earth. We'll think it's a totally different place. Well, we individuals in a smaller time frame change continuously. I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. I'm not even the same person I was last week. I've totally changed. And the reason why is because life has happened and every experience changes me. So from that point of view, to take my mask off is just to simply recognize the living being that is formless, which is me. But it takes form every time I engage, you can say, the dream of the planet or my community, or I simply engage the people in my life, because everyone will bring out a different element of me. And to us, that's what the Toltec tradition teaches us as about the mask, is just, well, knowledge.
And acceptance of self of who you are. I love that. So then you're breaking the cycle, is what you're of the automatic.
Yes, exactly. Because the automatic is, for example, if I've been subjugating my yes and my no uh, with continuity, then I'm going to say no when I want to say yes, and I say yes when I want to say no. It becomes the automatic when I forget that I'm doing so, and all of a sudden I'm not aware of what I'm saying yes and no to. I'm just simply following the repetitive behaviors, and it's really hard to break out of them, which is in this case believing the projected mask that people have or have projected onto me, because that's who they think I am. But in their movie, I'm just a secondary character. And my movie, I am the main character, and that main character is right and wrong with every sentence or phrase I say. I'm right to the people who agree with me, and I'm wrong to the people who disagree with me. That's because I don't control the perception of another individual. I only control my own, which means I only control the integrity and clarity of what I say.
Oh, that's perfect. And that would lead us right into then how we share unconditional love. Because if love is love and we're going to share unconditional love, then how would we share it with others? We have to love ourselves unconditionally. And then if we love ourselves unconditionally, we can share that with others.
Yeah, it's the difference between I have to and I want to. You can
Oh,
hear.
right, true. Verbiage.
Yeah, because if I have to, you can already hear domestication all over it. I want to is the expression of what direction I want to go in life. It's passion. So you can say that in 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 that capacity, living life becomes this ability to make a choice, because I am the infinite possibility, because at this moment I'm the youngest I will ever be, and it's easiest to see the infinite possibility when you hold a newborn baby in your arms. You're looking into the eyes of a living being that has the full capacity to become anything in life. And just like my parents held me as a baby when I was a baby, and they saw the infinite possibility, the only difference at the age of 42 is that I grew up and I'm bigger, but I know how to use my body and I know how to use my mind. I can still go in any direction in life, which means conditional love and unconditional love are both a choice. Respect is a choice. So if we become aware how we've been sharing conditional love, then sharing unconditional love is a choice. It's the choice of how we want to express that love. And unconditional love simply means the willingness to see other people as they are, and to know that I only control to the tips of my fingers, and they control to the tips of theirs. If you and let's imagine that you and I are standing right in front of one another, and if we decide to put our index fingers together and we join those fingers, you're only still responsible to the tips of your fingers, and I'm responsible to the tips of mine, because I don't control your will, you do, and you don't control my will, I do. And on the same concept, I don't control your perception, you control your perception, and I control my perception, and you don't. So that mutual respect is knowing that awareness that I don't control you, yet this friendship between you and I only exists for as long as we both say yes. In fact, this relationship will cease to exist the moment we change that yes into a no. So every relationship only exists for as long as the two individuals are saying yes to one another. And if that concept is correct in that way, then the only thing that will exist in this relationship of ours are the things that both you and I say yes to. If you say no to something or I say no to something, it will not be a part of it, which means to respect you is to respect your capability to say yes and no to the things you want to say no to. Your no is just as powerful as your yes, which makes me very grateful when we both say yes at the same time. But I can't express that respect until I have that for myself, that my no is just as powerful as my yes. To respect myself is to respect my capability to say yes to the things I want to say yes to and no to the things I want to say no to. And that my no is just as powerful as my yes. And to respect myself, I also respect myself to experience the consequences of my choices. Once I have that respect for myself in that way, then I'm able to share that and offer that respect to you. And that's where unconditional love is expressed, where I respect your capability to live your life with the personal freedom you have. That I don't control your yes, I don't control your no, and I won't attempt to control it with domestication. I will respect your capability to live your life as free as you want to do it, but understanding completely as well that we co-create together the dream of us. And we can choose to either have that relationship be in disharmony with conditional love. We can create the most perfect nightmare if that's what we want, or we can create the most harmonious dream and relate to one another with unconditional love. It's both our choices. And it's a beautiful choice, to be honest with you. This is the way, if we, for example, if I'm aware of the 4 conditions, then how do I practice the 4 agreements? Well, an agreement, the word, is just simply the action of saying yes to something. That's what an agreement is, the action of saying yes. So it starts with accepting the truth. I take things personal. Then I become aware of what not taking things personal looks like. I become aware of what triggers me to take things personal. And in that moment of choice, knowing full well that I accept myself just the way I am, which means that I accept myself. If I take it personal, it's because I want to take it personal. But even with that awareness, if I choose not to take it personal, that's when that agreement becomes alive. I'm free to say yes to either one. When I have that respect for myself, that I'm free to say yes to conditional love and yes to unconditional love, then I'm able to express that freedom to you, and you can choose as well. So when we both choose unconditional love at the same time, like we choose not to take personal with that awareness, that's when that agreement becomes alive. That's when unconditional becomes alive, is in the action of saying yes to it and expressing it in that way. But I can't give what I do not have, which means it starts within me.
Which would bring us to Todd. You had something you wanted to bring up, and it brings a perfect opening for your segue, Todd.
Yeah, actually, I have a two-part question for you, Miguel. In your book, The Mastery of Self, you talk about the master of self is adept at spotting the parasite, the negative self-talk, to one of an ally. So my first question is, can you share with the listeners what a parasite is versus an ally? And the second part is, how do you think they correlate with the shadow self?
Okay, the shadow self. Um, I'm not familiar with that definition, but I'll do my best. But with the ally and the parasite, we humans are the only creature that are able to self-domesticate as far as we know. And the reason why we say that is because we don't know the minds inside the animals that surrounds us. When we domesticate an animal, we have to be actively domesticating them in order for them to stay domesticated. As soon as we stop the active domestication, slowly but surely they will go back to being their wild sense of self. When our active domesticators stop actively domesticating us, we continue to domesticate ourselves. How? If I'm the voice that's talking inside my own mind, who's listening? I am. If I'm the one who's listening, who's talking? I am. And there's where the parasite comes in. The parasite is the mind that becomes the active domesticator, which means it's the mind that continues to believe in all those conditions even after the active domesticator that domesticated us stops actively domesticating. For example, when my mom stopped actively domesticating me a long time ago, or my grandmother did, I continue to domesticate myself by continuing to believe their domestication. How? Because I keep saying yes to that. So the parasite is simply the term for the mind that is continuously domesticating me. Because imagine me at the age of 8 and I'm learning how to, I've learned the domestication of my parents of finishing all my meal. And if I don't finish it, then I'm a sinner. And if I continue to believe that, when I'm 42 and I get to a point where my body tells me the truth and I'm full, but if I continue to believe that I'm a sinner because I've wasted food, then I'm going to go against myself and I'm going to finish that plate just so I can live up to that image of the perfect version of me. And I went against myself because now I'm hurting and I'm completely uncomfortable and my body is experiencing the consequences of going beyond that moment of truth. So I it becomes subconscious because I've done it so many times that it becomes automatic and I'm not aware of it. So the parasite has become my active domesticator. I'm repeating myself, but that's where I'm heading for. In order to tell the difference between the parasite and my ally, you can say that the work we're doing is the redemption of the mind, because we've given our mind the instruction to continue to be our domesticator even after our domesticators stop actively domesticating us. The telltale sign of that is put on the clothes you know your friends will make fun of you for. Admit to people that you listen to certain types of music. Admit to them that you voted for someone. And all of a sudden you'll hear the domestication even when someone's not actively domesticating you. You can hear the domestication inside your own mind. That's the parasite. And you hear fear, judgment, and all that kind of thing. So that's the internal work we're doing. The internal work is to heal the heart and the mind. And the way we heal the mind is that we redeem the mind and we heal it. And then we realize that I've been saying all those conditions in those voices, and the voices are of those kids, of that grandma, of that grandfather, or whoever domesticated us. We continue to believe it using their voice, but in reality, it's us. Because the same energy I use to move my legs, to move my arms, is the same energy I use to create a thought. Which means I continue to, if I was a scorpion, I would continue to sting myself with my own tail. In that case, I'm using my own intent to keep believing in those conditions. And I project onto my domesticators, or you can say those people, those bullies, those parents, that
Right.
social conditioning. I keep blaming them, but in reality, they might have said it once, maybe twice, but I've been saying it to myself over and over and over in their voice inside my own mind, which means I have been domesticating myself and using their words to go against me. That's the parasite. So you can say it's the moment where I own my own self-domestication, that I own the fact that I continue to believe in those judgments, in those prejudices, in those beliefs that subjugated my will. And I forgive myself. To let go of conditional love is to forgive myself for ever saying yes to it in the first place. Which means, forgive me, mind. I used you as my active domesticator. You are relieved of that duty. Now can you be my ally? And what's my ally? A mind that allows me to see the truth. Like Don Quixote. Don Quixote's mind's own distorted everything to make him think that it was in the world where Don Quixote existed and turning windmills into giants. The ally is to accept that those are giants and that his name is Alonso Quijano, the truth. So the ally is the mind that no longer is used to love myself conditionally, no longer is used as my active domesticator. and I forgive myself for ever using myself to love myself conditionally.
So once we release that, we really do truly wake up. We wake up into our authentic selves. We become liberated. So we release that, we see our
Hmm.
true self, and we love our true self. So then we can be authentic
Yeah,
anywhere. We can be authentic in like you in your book you state, in the grocery store or the gas station. You truly can be authentic with anyone and anywhere in unconditional love, because you see
yeah,
yourself for just truly yourself.
yeah, exactly. Because all you are is being you. And at those places, everyone's going to see me different. They're going to totally see me different. I'm responsible for what I say. I'm not responsible for what you hear. For that reason, is because I don't control your perception. So, from that point of view, I am responsible for my own authenticity. And what's my authenticity? I'm alive right now. That's it. Everything else is just a point of view.
That is amazing. Can you give the listeners some positive advice on how to stay there? Like, I mean, it's a lot of work. We know that, but once you get there, like you said, every day, every week is different. But to get there, give the listeners some advice, positive advice on how to really get there.
Sure. Well, it starts with a joke that my grandma used to say all the time, which turns out to be a Woody Allen joke, which is, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And my grandma used to say that all the time, which leads me to this point. Someone asked me earlier this year is that if the mastery of self means that you're always happy. And the answer to that is no. Life throws a curveball through us at all times. Right now, for example, I've practiced not taking things personal. I became really good at it. I started with the outer fringes of my circle of friends and made it to the center, which is I thought was my father, my mother, and my brothers, the people who have always been in my life. And I got really good at it. That I thought I've mastered not taking things personal. And then life says, "Oh, really? Let me open up this the next layer of this onion." And there comes my kids. And all of a sudden, puberty comes in. They're no longer kids. They're tweens, whatever, teenage kids or pre-teenage kids, and all of a sudden the whole thing about parenting goes out the window, and there I am starting from scratch, not to take things personal, coming from my own kids. And any parent who has made that step from raising a child to entering the teenage years of your children's lives will know. But all of a sudden, anxiety looks dramatically different. All the what ifs come in, and all of a sudden, not taking things personal, I started from scratch. It's starting all over again, which goes to this: life will always throw us a curveball. Life is always constantly challenging us or giving us an opportunity to learn. And sometimes we're going to be angry. Sometimes we're going to be sad. Sometimes we're going to be nostalgic. Sometimes we're going to feel anxiety take over. The beautiful thing about mastery of self or any tradition is that once you master it, you know how to use the instruments to once again heal yourself. Because in loving yourself unconditionally, it allows you to enjoy life when life is going good, when things are going beautiful. And then when life turns ugly and goes in that cycle where everything feels daunting, everything feels heavy, it allows you to continue to move the story forward as you apply everything you've learned to heal yourself once again. Because if I fall for the trap of always trying to live up to the image of Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. that's always happy and all that kind of thing, then I've let domestication win with the mask and the corruption of that happy guy. It reminds me of In and Out, that movie from Pixar, that you always have to be happy, 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 and then you're projecting and then realizing that sadness is the real thing that allows us to heal. And all of a sudden, it's sadness that allows us to feel compassion. It is sadness that allows us to feel empathy. And all of a sudden, sadness is nothing you shun or put in a little circle and tell her not to move. All of a sudden, sadness is the thing that allows us to understand it from someone else's point of view, as we realize that we're all full of these emotions. Well, the mastery of self from this point of view of the Toltec tradition is, sometimes I am not going to be happy. Sometimes I'm going to be sad, sometimes angry. But in that moment, I have a choice to let this thing consume me or to honor myself and say, this is how I feel, but I have a choice in which direction I want to go in. I can let this sadness, this depression consume me and sink me into that oblivion, or I can start by loving myself unconditionally and say, this is my truth at this very moment. And now I'm going to choose to go in a different direction. And I start anew. And I start using everything I know to help me heal myself once again.
That's beautiful because that you said you didn't understand the shadow self verbiage that we use. That's our show is called The Shadow Self, A Journey Within. So the way you wrap that up is beautiful because that's what our listeners, our clients say to us. Well, it's a shadow, it's a darkness, and it's not. The way you have verbally, eloquently said that is notice the moment, notice the emotion, notice the feeling, and then make a choice. Are you going to wallow and stay in it, or are you going to be happy?
Yes.
It's just a choice. The shadow doesn't have to go with you. You don't need to be Eeyore carrying the cloud over your head. So I love the way you wrap that up. That was perfect. Thank you.
You know, that reminds me of that Cherokee, that old Cherokee story that's in that movie, Tomorrowland, that Disney movie. The story of the two wolves. You know, the grandfather takes the grandson and for a lesson of oral tradition to share the knowledge from one generation to the other. And the grandfather says to the grandson, inside of us there lives two wolves. One, a wolf of love and compassion. The other one, a wolf of hate and anger. They both live within both of us. And the grandson, after a while, says, if I make them fight, which one will win? And the grandfather said, the one you feed. Now, when I first heard that lesson, I thought it was a beautiful thing. And I naturally thought, oh, you feed the wolf of love. And then I realized that that's conditional love all over. It's corrupting it. Unconditional love is the willingness to see the whole of me, which means I am both wolves. I am both the wolf of love and I am both the wolf of hate. I am both. And I've decided I'm going to feed both. The difference is that I'm not going to make them fight. And that's where the war is over.
Very mind blowing. So, Miguel, if the listeners want to follow you or get in touch with you, how might they do that?
Well, our home base will always be our website, which is miguelruiz.com. That's my father's, and that's basically the family's. My own personal one is miguelruizjr.com. That's miguelruizjr.com. And of course, we are on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, although I admit I'm more actively on Instagram. It's a lot more fun, and I enjoy it better than Facebook. But our home base is our website, miguelruiz.com and miguelruizjr.com.
Excellent. Well, I will have that in the show notes. And my advice to the listeners, if you purchase the book, The Mastery of Self, A Toltec Guide to Personal Freedom, it is an awesome read. It will really change your perspective on how you look at things. So that's my suggestion. I think we're going to have to wrap this up. This has been a wonderful interview. Thank you so much, Miguel, for being with us today. We're very honored.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd. Thank you so much, Joanne. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yeah, and my suggestion is buy all the books.
Yes, yes, yes,
I
yes.
own them all, and every one that time there's a new one comes out, I get it because they're brilliant and they really help with everything. So that's my suggestion: buy them all.
Thank you,
Yeah, a
Joanne.
friend of mine suggested that I read the Four Agreements about 5 years ago, and it really changed my whole thinking. So that's where I started. So yes, I agree with you, Joanne. Buy them all because they're awesome.
No, I think the interesting thing about that little book is, it changes every time I read it, and the reason why it changes is that I'm in different stages of my life, and I see it differently.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the
Yes.
way that you said that because my daughter, who's going to be 21, is reading it now, and I had read it and then rereading it, and now her perspective on it compared to my perspective on it, because we're individuals and masters of our own selves,
Mhm.
are so different when we discuss it. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, yeah, because it reflects the place we're at. For example, when I was 21, that's when the book came out. I was 21 when the Four Agreements came out. I only read 3 chapters and I put it down because it was my dad telling me what to do all over again. And then years later, like I really read it again around the age of 26, 27, and that's when I started using it the way everyone else uses it, as an instrument that allows me to heal. And I saw it dramatically different. And since then, it's changed every time I read it.
Well, that's a wrap. Until next time, everyone have a good evening.
Have fun.